Welcome to the Agent of Wealth podcast with Marc Bautis from Bautis Financial. In this podcast, Marc helps guide you towards financial freedom, ensure you never run out of money, and create a balance in life that prioritizes what is most important to you. Join us for this journey as Marc draws from years of expertise and guest experts to solve the multiple wealth building challenges involved in your financial life.
Welcome back to the Agent of Wealth. This is your host, Marc Bautis. Today, we're diving into a unique and often overlooked investment opportunity with a guest who's mastered the art of turning everyday businesses into wealth-building machines. Joining me today is Kriss Berg, a serial entrepreneur who was formerly known as the Car Wash Guy on X. Kriss has an impressive portfolio that includes 3 car washes with plans to add more, alongside 2 thriving e-commerce and newsletter businesses. Beyond that, he's passionate about helping entrepreneurs thrive, hosting mental health retreats, and he's even cracked the code on minimizing income taxes. Kriss, welcome to the show. It's great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Marc.
So while you've built this portfolio across different industries, I just wanted to start off with the car washes.
Yes.
What inspired you to invest or start building that piece of the machine up?
Yeah, that's a great question. About 2020 or so, 2021, I think, or 2021, I should say, sorry. I was looking for kind of a side investment. I had successful online businesses, and I wanted something that was a little more tangible. Selling stuff online is awesome, but I wanted something that I could kind of get my hands on. And at the time, 2021, self-storage was all the rage, especially if you were active on Twitter at the time. It seemed like you could just make money doing almost nothing as long as you bought a self-storage facility. And I knew it wasn't that easy, but I looked into that heavily and brought on a friend of mine as a partner, and we wrote dozens and dozens of letters to self-storage owners, and we got one reply, and the one reply was, "I will never sell this place." And so we thought, well, we should keep looking. And one of the agents that we had reached out to about finding us a self-storage facility to buy says, "You should look at this car wash. It's been on the market for a while." He had actually delisted it, but it was still technically for sale, and it was what they call a pocket deal. And so we dug into it, and it had a lot of the characteristics that we were looking for in the self-storage, in that it wasn't on Google Maps. The owners were actually 2 brothers who had started a bank. So you talk about a distracted owner, and that's what we really look for in our real estate deals is neglect, right? That's where you can do the most value add. And so they hadn't paid attention to this car wash in 12 years. And they hadn't raised the prices in 12 years. They had just upgraded some equipment though. So there was the advantage of that. So we dug into it and we thought, wow, this could really work. And so we bought it. It was a self-serve car wash with what's called an in-bay automatic on one side. So 3 self-serve bays and then an automatic in one bay. And we bought it for, I think it was $565,000. It's very reasonable. We found a bank. Banks love to lay on commercial real estate. And so we found a bank to give us 75% of the cost on a mortgage. And we went in there and we just figured it out. We raised the prices to the market rates, which we were able to raise them almost double over the intervening 5 or 6 months after we bought it. We put it on Google Maps, like on the first week, and we increased the business by 70 or 80% between those 2 things. We also focused on the customer experience. So we fixed some broken equipment. We got better soaps in there. So the customers, there was a bunch of regulars who loved this place. And so we didn't just raise the prices on them. We really improved their experience, it turned out to be very simple. And we raised the income of the place by 70%, which, if you're familiar with commercial real estate, also raises the value by 70%. And while we were doing that, another car wash that was virtually identical came on the market. We bought that one too. So we bought 2 in that first year, and it was going great, and I loved it. And I knew about some of the tax implications, but it wasn't part of my calculus for buying these. But I had a upper six-figure income from my online businesses. And so at the end of December, every year I email my accountant and I say, what are we looking at? What's kind of the damage for this year? What can I expect to write to the IRS? Because as a business owner, I write quarterly payments to the IRS, and then usually in January or actually March, when my taxes are due, I write a big check to the IRS. And so I like to have an idea what that is before the end of December. And she asked me some questions about the car washes and wrote back and said, you're not going to owe anything. And I did that kind of cartoon thing where you rub your eyes and you make sure your ears are working. I called her right away and I said, what do you mean I won't owe anything? And she says, because of the depreciation on these car washes and because the very special characteristic of car washes, you're going to depreciate almost the entire value of those 2 car washes that you bought. You're going to show a huge loss on your taxes. And not only are you not going to owe anything, but all those quarterly payments that you made are coming back to you. And so the upshot was that the down payments that I put into these car washes, I got back in less than a year because I didn't have to write a check to the tax man. Those 2 numbers offset themselves easily. So I already had my investment back in less than a year. And I'm sure your audience is wondering, well, how the hell does that work? So what's going on now is called bonus depreciation. I'm sure that a lot of people who are familiar with real estate have heard about this. Car washes occupy a very unique place in bonus depreciation. Bonus depreciation is applied to equipment or buildings that have a 15-year life or less, okay? For whatever reason, in the tax code, the tax man decided that car wash buildings and equipment fall under that 15-year or less life. So when you buy a car wash, the only thing that is not eligible for bonus depreciation is the land, is the actual ground underneath the car wash. Every single thing else is eligible for the bonus depreciation. So what my accountant did that year, she says, I need you to figure out what the lots are worth. What is the dirt worth on this real estate? Because I always buy the real estate along with the car wash. And so we asked some brokers, some real estate agents around town. We got that number. And so, for instance, on the $565,000 car wash, the dirt was worth about $100,000. So we could depreciate 100% of the remainder that year. So that was $465,000. That ended up being a $465,000 loss on my taxes. Are you following that, Mark? Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
Okay.
Sure.
Once I figured that part out of it, I was like, oh, wow, we got to keep doing this. And that's exactly what we've been doing. We're now up to, I have my 5th car wash under contract right now. Probably close on it in January, February. But we're just building this little miniature car wash empire. And we're executing the same playbook of improving the customer experience, improving the operations, cleaning these operations up, bringing the prices up to market rates, and marketing them correctly. And we're able to get at least a 10 or 20% increase to the bottom line, usually within the first few months.
So you initially mentioned that these were self-serve car washes with 3 bays. What is a self-serve car wash? Is that one where you actually go into the bay and you wash the car yourself? Okay. What does the equipment look like I'm familiar with like the ones where you go on like that little belt that takes you through the car wash. What's involved in the equipment or building for a self-serve one?
Sure. So let's start from the top. There's 3 basic types of car washes. You've got the tunnel, or it's also called an express wash, which is the one you just mentioned. So you drive in and a conveyor belt moves you through washing the car and then spits out clean cars. Those have been built like crazy nationwide, and it's largely because of this bonus depreciation rule that we're talking about. Investors figured out that you could have this depreciation and you could offset taxes, and it turned into this financial flywheel. Then you've got what's called a touch-free automatic. The tunnels and the expresses, they have brushes for the most part, and they're touching the cars. They cause a lot of damage, and there's a lot of people who are absolutely religious about not having their car touched. For them, an automatic car wash is a the best automatic car wash is a touch-free. So we have those in the automatic base, and those are where the wands just spin around your car, spraying high-pressure water and soap, and never actually touch the car. And then you've got the self-serve, which people get out of the car, they grab the wand, they run their credit card, or they plug in a bunch of quarters, and they actually wash the car themselves. And I get this question all the time, is like, who's still washing their own car? And the fact of the matter is, about half the cars on the road cannot go through a tunnel. If you pull up to a tunnel with a ski rack or a bike rack, I live in Colorado where it's ski and bike rack central, you cannot go through a tunnel. And if you have a lifted pickup truck, or obviously if you have anything in the back of your pickup truck, any kind of customization, you can't go through those tunnel or express washes. And a lot of people can't even go through the touch-free. So those folks go through the self-serve and wash their own car. And so we get a lot of people, we get a lot of RVs, we get a lot of ATVs, UTVs, motorcycles, contractors' trucks with big racks where they want to wash their truck, but they can't go through an automatic system. So there's still a ton of demand for these self-serve and touch-free car washes that we're buying. And in fact, the inventory is going down on those. People are tearing them down and putting in Dutch Brothers coffee or a Starbucks or a Chick-fil-A. And so the demand is steady for these car washes, but the inventory is going down. And we're seeing that locally.
Now, you mentioned that you were able to get bank financing on it. Did the bank finance the whole business? Did they just finance the property aspect of it?
We buy it all as one. It's all valued as one unit. And so they will finance the entire thing. If you get into some bigger transactions where you have millions and millions of dollars worth of equipment, and then the real estate can be millions and millions of dollars, and you want to do SBA financing, things like that, sometimes they will divide it. But on a deal that's, we have a deal that we did this year that was, the car wash was about 1.5 million. They just loop it all together and they finance it as one deal. And on that particular deal, we got 70% loan to value. We've seen as high as 80% loan to value. But I would say the average is probably around 75% loan to value.
Has interest rates going up recently impacted at all, like either the profitability or the ability to get financing?
Not the ability to get it, but it does. Yeah, obviously your payments are a little bit higher, and so it can impact profitability. We generally advise people, if you're going to look at a car wash, to look at about what's called a 10x multiplier. So the cap rate, if you divide by a cap rate, it becomes the multiplier. So if you're looking at a car wash and let's say the net operating income was $100,000 at a 10% cap rate, you're taking 100,000, dividing it by that 0.1 for 10%, that equals a $1 million value. At that rate, at the current interest rates, you can still make money. You're not going to make a lot of money, but you can still make money. And so you really want that cap rate to be as low as possible, as high as possible if you're the buyer. You want to get, if you can get up into 11 or 12 or 13%, I see some people buying them even at 20% cap rates, then the money really works.
And what's it like to manage these car washes? And at what point does scaling become an issue?
Yeah, excellent question. So we have 3 now. We're actually ready to open our 4th, and then we have the 5th under contract now. The synergies and the scale has really worked out great because we have 3 employees, and we worked it now to where they're only working 2 car washes now, but we've created this efficient system where they're going to be able to manage 4. And so they're the ones really fixing everything. If you go into a mechanical room, a car wash, it's quite complicated. You have a lot of pumps and motors. There's a lot of chemicals. There's a lot going on. So you need people who know what they're doing. So if your listeners were wanting to buy a car wash, I would say some of the most essential characteristics of your first car wash is that somebody's working there that knows what's going on and how to fix things. If you're an investor, you don't want to be standing in the bay spraying out mud. You don't want to be sitting on the roof fixing a leak. And most of the existing car washes have somebody there who's working it and knows how to fix things. So the labor component is important, and that's actually your highest expense usually is labor. but it can save you a lot of money in the long run if they can maintain the equipment. And so we have, like I said, we have 3 people now. They'll be able to manage 4 car washes locally, though, doing a rotation.
How do you decide on location, and are all 5 of yours local in Colorado, or would you ever be like a long distance owner?
Great question. We have one. So I'm in Western Colorado. We bought one in Denver last year. And the idea was we brought in a partner who was Denver located, and he was going to help manage that location and then help us expand in Denver, because where I live, it's a county of about 160,000. There's not a lot of people here. Denver, obviously, you have many times that. And so there was a lot more deal flow available in Denver. So we were going to bring him in. We were going to expand in the Denver metro. Well, he decided he doesn't really like car washes. It's not his jam, which is fine. And he said, I kind of want out. We bought him out, and we put in a manager who we're managing remotely. I would not suggest that for your first one, but once you kind of get the flow of it, once you understand how they work and what you need to monitor and things like that, it can be done. I have a student. I actually have a course on buying car washes we can talk about. I have a student who bought one. He's in LA. He bought 2 in Columbus, Ohio for his first deals, and they're making money, but it's something that he says, I think I'm going to sell these in a couple of years. He followed my playbook, though. He built them up. He's really added some nice value to them. And he's going to make a very nice profit. But if this is a long-term play for you, I would go local.
In addition to the interest rates rising, a lot of the talk recently has been inflation rising. Have the prices of actually what you can charge for a car wash, does that keep up with inflation?
Yeah, for the most part. One of the advantages in the self-serve wash is that there's no measure for how much they're spending at the moment, right? You can see the dollars going up, but it's hard to compare that and say, well, I used to pay this. A lot of people say, well, it cost me $3 to wash my car, and now it costs $4. That's an acceptable inflation for them for the most part. So we don't have much pushback on our pricing at all. We're still actually much cheaper than the tunnel and express washes as far as on a per wash. And then if you look at the, washing your own car, that is much, much less. So we're actually, in some ways, we're a little bit recession proof in that way. If people decide they can't afford an express wash membership, is usually around $30 to $40 a month. A lot of people, if things get really bad, will decide, you know what, I'm just going to wash my own car, and it's going to cost me $4 each time, and I'll just do it twice a month. That's a pretty good savings for them. So in some ways, we're recession proof.
So it's interesting. You almost get even if people decide during recession they don't want to do yours, you'll get the push down of people coming from the tunnels and the non-touch.
That's exactly right. And we get a ton of people who go through a tunnel, damage their car.
And then they're your customers.
And now they are a convert. Yeah. They're a religious convert to touch-free car washes for the rest of their life. So.
Yeah. Just going back to managing these. I work with and know a lot of people that do real estate investing, and they get into it because this concept of passive income. And even if they have a property manager, they come to find that it does take work involved if you're an owner of a property. I imagine a car wash is the same thing, even if you have employees working. Can you give us like either a typical day or a typical week about how much time you have to spend making sure these things are running properly?
Yeah, so when we had just the 3 car washes, 2 locally and the 1 in Denver, they were just stabilized. We weren't adding equipment and we weren't improving the lots. They were just running. When that was the case, I would do probably on average 5 hours a week. And my partner, who sort of handles a lot of the mechanical issues, he was averaging about 5 hours a week as well. So if you didn't have a partner, maybe 5 to 10 hours a week. Now we are actively building this business. We took over a car wash in September that had been closed for 4 years. And so we completely are rebuilding this. We're pretty much replacing everything but the brick. And so that has been more like 20 to 30 hours a week and occasionally a 40-hour week. But we have contractors doing the bulk of the work there. So what you want to do, if you want it to be more passive, you buy 1 car wash, put a manager in place, and it would probably be around 4 or 5 hours a week. Like any real estate investment, the more you treat it like a business, the more you're going to get out of it, the more profit you're going to make. So the more energy you put into it, for the first-time car wash buyer, I would say that you just need to go. You need to show up there, wash your car, and see What's broken? Hey, the spot free rinse isn't working. Or, hey, the soaps, talk to the customers a little bit. Say, this guy, he got his $5 bill eaten by the machine or whatever. It's not passive. I would call it semi-passive. But it's really not bad if you just have a car wash or two. And a lot of the people that we buy from, some of them are truly out of state and are really passive. But that really shows up in the property. The lot's covered in weeds, the equipment's broken, the signage is rusted and cracking, and you can't tell what's going on. That's obvious in those properties that they're neglecting it. So it's sort of you get what you give.
Yeah, you mentioned that this one you're almost building from scratch. And I don't know how far along you are, but would you do that again? And also, would you recommend someone do that for their first car wash, actually build one versus buying an existing one?
No, it wouldn't be so bad to take over an existing location that needed some love, needed some TLC. But this place had been abandoned for 4 years and everything had frozen in it. So the snow melt system in the concrete had frozen. That had to be replaced. All of the equipment in the equipment room had to be replaced. That's going to be about a $420,000 project. We're getting a huge chunk of that financed. We're putting about $160,000 into it. So I'll walk you through the math on that because it's interesting. This is on one of the busiest intersections in Western Colorado. It has almost 42,000 cars a day going through this major intersection. And there's a lube shop right next door, which is the ideal pairing for a car wash because people get their oil changed, they want to wash their car, right? Like it's just very, very synergistic. So the lube shop bought this location like 12 years ago. And then during the pandemic, they could barely keep the lube shop staffed. So the car wash just went by the wayside. Long story short, they basically had to sell this lot with the car wash on it, knowing that nothing in it really worked. Everything had frozen and had been severely neglected. So we basically put an option down on the real estate and the car wash for $0 down, but we're paying $3,000 a month. And we have an exclusive right to buy that property for the next 2 years for $600,000. So we're only paying $3,000 a month rent, but our equipment loans and all the stuff that we put into it, those are going to be about another probably $6,000 or $7,000 a month. So we have a $10,000 a month nut or essentially mortgage on this place. Okay. But with 42,000 cars a day, covering the $10,000 a month nut should be very easy. That car wash should do somewhere in the neighborhood of $200,000 or $300,000 a year in its first year, somewhere in there. And then we'll put in an automatic for an additional $250,000. This car wash, we believe, could be doing $500,000 to $600,000 to $700,000 a year. And our blueprint is actually a friend of mine who owns a car wash right here in town as well. It's about a mile from my house. He did the exact same thing 8 years ago, but it was run down, abandoned. He's built a bit up. His car wash is now worth about $4 to $4.5 million, and he's done almost the exact same thing. He bought it for about $500,000. He's put about $400,000 into it, including upgrades over time. So you can see the return is really there at the right location. His advantage is that he's in the best part of town, nicest neighborhood in town, and there's nobody within probably 3 miles of him.
Is there an exit strategy at some point in the future for these?
Yeah, so we're branding all these the same. They all have a membership, so we're competing a little bit with the tunnels on a membership program. Our memberships are about half the price across the board as a tunnel membership. But your membership is good at any location. Now we will have 4 locally. You will be able to go to any of those locations and use your membership. So the hope is to group these together, and I would hope to get up to maybe 8 locations in this region. And then some days I'm like, yeah, let's sell it and make a bunch of money. And then other days I'm like, man, I should pass this on to my kids. This is a great business. We don't have a defined exit strategy right now. Our strategy is always to maximize the value of the business. And I really like Sam Zell's, the famous real estate investor. His philosophy was, I'll sell when I get a number I can't refuse. And so if you build up a really robust business, really great systems, great people involved, and you got happy customers, and you have really beautiful properties that you can be proud of. Eventually somebody will probably come along and offer us a boatload of money for them, and we may take it. But right now, our goal is to grow locations.
What do you see in either trends or what's coming next in just in the car wash industry in general? And it's like AI coming into, I ask people because how that's like impacting everything. So
probably, one of the advantages car washes have is that they don't change that much, right? There's changes in chemicals. I get a salesman calls me and says he's got the newest, fanciest detergent that's going to get the bugs off the car better or whatever it is. But for the most part, this industry hasn't changed much, and it's probably not going to change much. And that's actually why I like it. Coming from the e-commerce world, where it changed like monthly, it was you'd get whiplash. There were so many changes going on. Changes are very slow in these, what I would call a Main Street business. I like that. It's predictable.
Yeah. Just going back one more time to the exit strategy. You mentioned like the bonus depreciation up front. Would that hit you on the other side of it if you did sell?
Yes. So that would be recaptured upon sales, which is another reason to keep it potentially. Or the other option, obviously, is to 1031 into another property, which is probably what we would try to do if we sold. And so the bonus depreciation, just to close that loop, it's declining right now. It was 100% when we started, and it was 80%. It's 60% this year. So you can only take 60% of the bonus depreciation on your eligible assets. Next year, it's going to be 40. But this whole thing came about with a bill that Trump promoted in 2017. With him coming back, people are pretty positive that this is going to get renewed. Who knows? And it's not really a good strategy to count on Congress. But I think it's a very, very good chance that bonus depreciation gets re-upped and that 100% bonus depreciation comes back. One thing that anybody who's interested in real estate, especially somebody who has a W-2 or another business, you cannot take bonus depreciation on, say, a storage unit and apply that against your active income of a W-2 or an active business, because the IRS sees a storage unit as passive income. If you're buying real estate that is rented or leased, that is seen as passive, even though you and your listeners know that real estate really isn't passive. That's how the tax man sees it. Car washes are seen as active. So you can write off active losses in car washes, which is really just paper losses because of the depreciation, against your active income from a W-2. If you wanted to take the depreciation from storage unit or an apartment complex or a mini mall, you would have to be a real estate professional. And the only way to become a real estate professional in the tax man's eyes is to spend at least 50% of your time on your real estate business, which kind of defeats the purpose of buying real estate on the side, right? A lot of people lie about that number. I don't recommend that, but that's the deal. That's another advantage that car washes have.
You mentioned your course about helping people with purchasing a car wash. Can you maybe give a little bit of overview of what's entailed in that?
Absolutely. So I started a Twitter account. I actually had a Twitter account almost from the beginning, but I started talking about this on Twitter. It's Kriss Berg Tweets, KRISSBERG Tweets is my handle on Twitter. And I started talking about car washes when we first bought them. And I was just walking through people through the process. And I kept getting question after question. I was getting instant messages, people sending me deals to look at and all this stuff. And it got to be really overwhelming. So what we did was created a course. And this course will help you find, buy, and operate your first car wash. It's got contract templates. It's got where to look for these car washes, how to negotiate with the seller. It's got how to get the financing. And then finally, there's a manual on how to run a car wash if you were to buy one. That's available at taxfreecashcow.com. All one word, taxfreecashcow.com. You'll see my video there. I'll walk you through everything that is there. And it's actually on sale right now. We've got kind of a December special going on. So welcome your listeners to check that out. I love the car wash business. I never saw myself doing this. Like even 3 years ago, I never thought I'd be a car wash guy, But it's been a really sensational investment, and the returns have been just outrageously good.
Awesome, Kriss. Well, that's all the questions I have for you today. I want to thank you for joining me. You've shown us some great, interesting information on car washes, and it's just it isn't just a unique business opportunity, but also a scalable, profitable, and strategic way to build wealth. Before we go, I know you mentioned a couple of links and your Twitter handle. We'll link to those, but anywhere else someone should go learn more about you and connect with you?
No, Twitter is my preferred method. One of the best days of my life was the day that I shut down my LinkedIn profile. So I'm not on there, but I really enjoy interacting with people, and I would love for your guests to connect with me. Jump on Twitter, send me a DM. You can chat there and follow me. I'd share a lot about just entrepreneurship in general.
Great. We'll put all that in the show notes. Thanks again, Kriss, and thank you to everyone who tuned in today. Don't forget to follow the Agent of Wealth on the platform you listen from and leave us a review of the show. We're currently accepting new clients, and if you'd like to schedule a one-on-one consultation with our advisors, please do so at bautisfinancial.com/call.
Thank you for listening to the Agent of Wealth podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered represents the views and opinions of the guests and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Bautis Financial. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for professional financial planning and investment advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investments and financial planning.